Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulihi al-kareem. Wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'een. Amma ba'd. So, we're just kind of say something motivational to some sisters who might be struggling, especially if they're unfortunately surrounded by feminists. And even worse, secular feminist atheists. So I just wanted to say that women being around children is far superior than hooking up with random dudes and using drugs. And this seems like common sense to me and you, I'm sure, to many of you watching. But the way in which feminists have demonized children and have glorified dismembering of little babies, this is something that needs to be constantly spoken about. And I have not seen any Muslimah online that I've come across in videos, maybe there's one you can direct me to, but who openly speaks against abortion. Now, the other thing is that if we're really going to take on and change the ideologies that have taken root in America and have spread through the interwebs due to social media, we have to start talking consistently about the joys of being a mother. If we want to bring the abortion rates down, we have to talk about how wonderful it is to be a mom. Interestingly, the other day, there was a reporter lady, and she does stuff with Elijah Schaefer. She was asking women on the street if children born should be genocided, but she called it post-birth abortion, which was pretty smart, because infanticide is when the child exits the womb and the doctor finishes the job, right? The abortionist. Now, it has been recorded that if some babies survive abortions, they live. Others, they get terminated. And the new champion thing that the feminists in America, France, Canada, and other degenerate nations have pushed is that when the child is born, it should be up to the mother and the doctor to decide whether she wants to keep it or not. And this may sound extreme, but there's a clip from a Georgia governor where he talked about this very same thing. It's floating around on there. If you put Georgia governor incubators, I forgot how they word it, but YouTube removes it and then, shadow bans it, so it's hard for us to get to. But it was a politician who openly discussed this idea, and it's not far off from something they want to achieve because of how feminists dehumanize children. They call them parasites in the womb. They don't call them gifts from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They don't have any appreciation for fertility. Instead, when, for example, in this report by Savannah Hernandez, she put the microphone and said, "Would you have an abortion again?" And this chick goes, "Yeah, I would have like a couple more. Until I'm ready to be a mom." And the way she said it, even my child was like, she said she'd kill her babies? I said, yeah, that's feminist. It's important. The point I want to make is also that you show your daughters that baby killers, women who have this thirst and hunger and disdain for the most innocent beings on this earth, which is an infant, a baby, whether it's a baby mouse, a puppy, a kitty, a baby, because it's helpless. The way that these women so callously, smugly smile, instill in their youth about the culling of babies. I remember there was one feminist hijabi who used to comment on my YouTube channel. I did end up banning her because 6 months I kept track of her comments, like, is she going to change her mind? I'm not going to say her username, but she was very pro-abortion, had a lot of hate towards a lot of masculine men on YouTube. I won't name them, that way no one finds out who I'm talking about, but she was just going on, and you can tell she was a feminist hijabi. And the way in which some Muslim sisters have said, well, if there's no Khalifa, who's going to take care of the kid? They should be aborted. And in the Quran, it literally says you should not kill your children out of poverty. And further, I would argue that in America, there are so many programs, okay? There are so many ways to make money now, besides prostituting yourself and stuff of that accord. But see, the feminists have attacked the psychology of women to where they don't want a man and that they should want an abortion so they can be free. They have warped what it means to be free, because when you're free, you still have responsibilities, okay? You may not be oppressed by the federal government or a dictator or a king, but you still have to be like responsible in your finances, your decisions. And alcohol and drugs that these pill poppers do, it makes them blur the lines about who this man is that they're about to sleep with. And they think that degrading themselves and getting drunk and sleeping with guys who maybe won't even talk to them within a couple of days is power. And they think that snuffing the life of a little helpless baby who's in the garden of your womb, sitting there precious, its little tiny hands, little tiny toes, sitting there, hearing your heartbeat. And then, if you see the tools, you should look this up. The tools that they use, the clamps, it's a pulling apart. If these same feminists watched a chick, a baby chick, get pulled apart while it was alive, they would say, this is horrible. But when they do it to a live being that happens to live inside them, well, that's glorious, that's powerful, that's liberation, right? You see how the women are being conditioned to hate life, to love intoxicants, to warp their mind, and then when they're sick and depressed and their body starts to fade, and men can kind of feel this sort of sickly vibration from these women, they get rejected. And then they're sad and wondering why, and then they go hating more men. And then those same feminists go on to brainwash young virgins and young girls who don't have a body count, who come from small towns. And when they go into the city to work, these feminists who are denying their aging, who have a lot of makeup on, their pointy eyebrows, their long nails, their fried, bleached, heavily dyed hair, they seep their nails into these young girls and get them to turn against their father who protected them, get them to resent men of quality pursuing them, right? Because they need to be a boss bee, they need to be independent, they need to be all this stuff. And this causes more and more confusion and chaos. So, one thing in particular that I will say in defense of children is that when you get around them, you soften your heart. When you get around good parents, there's all kinds of parents. Some they let their kid whine over everything. Some, they let their kid eat anything they want and the kid gets morbidly obese. Some kids are overly lazy. So I'm not saying that all children are the same, but rather, when you get around a child whose parents have put discipline, righteousness, and have guarded them against watching inappropriate things, the little glow on that child is amazing, because their mind is so pure. And when they have this innocence in them, and you see, you just want to protect that little kid. You want to protect that little kid, and you want to help them. And you feel a sense of duty and a sense of guardianship towards them that makes you feel like a real woman. A woman's job is to protect children. We have been given that. And what's sad about human beings is that they will abort their children, and they will neglect their children. And you notice in the animal kingdom, there will be some animals who will defend their baby against all odds more than a human being will. And I think this shows that the conditioning by the media, Hollywood, the universities that have been co-opted by the liberal secular atheist ideology mixed with occultism, has done a total mind experiment since the 60s to 2022 about on the female mind and how can we get her to just drink herself to death, go into debt, massacre all her babies, be passed around like a used rag, and then, boom, she's just putting into the GDP. She's just nothing. We have to remember that there is good and evil in the world. The atheists think that there is no such thing as demonic spirits. They think there's nothing as evil. They don't think that there is recompense for your evil deeds. They don't think you'll get rewarded for your good deeds. They simply think that the court system is the only system of justice that exists. There is no spiritual realm, and that you will never pay for what you did as long as you don't get caught. This is a very warped sense of being, and it actually makes people worse because it allows them to not have accountability and responsibility for their actions and no fear for what they do. They simply need to find a way to escape, bribe their way out, and be a little bit more sly, slick, and sneaky. That's pretty much what they promote. When with Islam, we know that there is nowhere you can go where you are not being watched, and that every deed is recorded, and that you should seek forgiveness and you should repent for what you did. And you have to stop doing the sin. See, atheists think there's no such thing as sins. They go to this philosopher, to that university professor. They're very scattered in their dogma. And then they think that's a solid creed to reform humanity. When in actuality, we can see what that philosophy did to women and how it has eroded the relationship between mother and child. And so, for us Muslim women, I highly encourage more sisters. I understand your husband may not want you to have a niqab online, but you can still write an article. You can still create an account on Twitter or Facebook, Twitch, where it's not your voice or whatever, it's just text on the screen. Who knows how you can get artistic about it. You can write books. You can write articles. You can do moms clubs. Whatever it is that you can do within your capacity that makes your partner happy and is halal, do that. Because we need to voice more protection for the little ones and explain how hating children, choosing an animal over a child, and pills it's really going to make you have an empty home. And we have to consistently edge away at this ideology, because I myself once thought that they had this truth. I myself I got cold for a while. I can have a robot, I plug it in, it has the male organ, I can get artificially inseminated. If I earn money, I'll have my social security tax revenue, I'll do this, I had it all figured out, I thought. And I thought, if I just had a robot I can command, I don't have to do the physical labor myself of the intimacy. I can just watch a couple porn and then I'll get my emotions out and then that's it, and I don't need a man, right? That was before I had a child, right? But then when you're like 26 weeks, 27 weeks, and you start to feel your baby move inside of you, you're like, oh, whoa, and I felt a transformation. And then going through the intense labor pains, the screaming, the blood, the tears, the sweat, hearing your baby cry for the first time, holding them and looking in their eyes for the first time, nursing them, like nursing my child, struggling with my child, choosing my child over everyone else in this world. It changed my heart, and I realized that the philosophy that the feminists have sold us is purely demonic. And what's even better is now that joining Islam, you see a whole nother spectrum of female gender roles. And then it breaks my heart when I see the feminists clearly wanting to target Muslim women. Take off your hijab, be naked, use drugs, abort your children, sleep with all the dudes in the world, catch STDs, go into debt, have no dignity, let everything you do be recorded with your partner, there'll be no repercussions. Like, everything they advocate for destroys lives. And the way they keep getting away with it is because they censor and silence the opposition who will wake these young girls up. And that is why, if we all speak out in a mass wave, a mass flow, they can't, it's like, have you ever walk through a cloud of gnat flies, you're smacking them around, but there's too many. You just, they go in your ear, they go up your nose. You know, and you're like, oh, geez, you can't do it the same as if it's one fly. SWAT. You see what I'm saying? So if all of us swarm the social media airways on MeWe, on Getter, on True Social, on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, we just everywhere just push. TikTok's gonna be harder because they totally banned like that. You know, it's a weapon of war, that app, to erode the human psyche. You know, it's definitely a smart Chinese weapon that is destabilizing society without even a shot being fired because of the nastiness and the insanity and mental illness it instills within its viewers through their algorithms. But if we, essentially my point is, consistently push forward, we don't give up, we have unique examples that can get around censorship, right? That can wake people up. And we are proud to say we're mothers. We're proud to say, you know what? I don't want to work 7 days a week. I'll be fine with, a couple of pairs of pants. I don't need 25 pairs, Rejecting materialism, embracing minimalism, giving charity, leading by example, having our own farms, creating social networks that reflect our Islamic values both in the digital realm and in the physical realm. We can do this. And we can wake up women to that children are not the enemy. They are not a burden. You should let go of being wild, rampant, and passed around to every guy. And that high body counts are not anything to be respected. It's not something special. It's not something honorable, dignified, virtuous, moral, ethical, sustainable. We shouldn't be ashamed to say this. And those of us who grew around the chaos must not let these liberal secular atheists or feminist hijabis who grew up with a good mom and dad in a conservative country gaslight us and tell us, oh, you just don't understand what true feminism is. You just don't understand sexual liberation. You just don't understand how bad men are. No, rather, we should say, we know we do, but we didn't take that hate in our heart and let it manifest and entrench us deeper within that type of neurosis of hatred towards men and towards children. Rather, we understood it was a test and trial from Allah, and we excelled above it, and we did not allow it to entrench us further into that abyss of chaos, of mental illness and loneliness that feminism produces. So, recognize that if you're looking at these women who have no kids, they're partying, they're in the VIP section of the club, they're swapping spit with dudes who are married, dudes who probably have gonorrhea. Don't envyize those women. Don't look at them and think that's success. Rather think that's depravity. You have to invert it. You have to see the truth. Because they want you to not have children. They want you to be broken. Because if they didn't, they wouldn't promote such destructive habits of slaughtering your own children, of intoxicating yourself to the point where you might get liver cancer, or smoking blunts to the point where you might get lung cancer or throat cancer, right? They wouldn't promote such degenerate, unhealthy, both physically and spiritual elements to you if they actually cared about the cohesion of society and the well-being of those who watch their content. So, hopefully, if you're feeling like, I can never be a mom, I love my school more, I love my job so much, I'm so important, I'm so special, the company can't be without me, just know that your child can't be without you, and that it's okay to not have the perfect Romeo partner, and to sacrifice some years till your child, is 18, and then you can go do what you want to do, and when your child has their own families and you're old, you can travel the world then. That's actually probably more fun, when you are in your retirement years. That's the time where you can travel the world. But if you want to travel the world and sleep with everybody, that's quite different. I had one classmate who said she wanted to have intimacy, I'm putting it lightly the way she said it, with one dude in every country. And I think she got pretty close to achieving her goal, let's just put it that way. She's very gross. But I shouldn't call her my friend. She was a person who served on the board in a certain club with me, but I was polite, so I shouldn't acquaintance. I'll say acquaintance. Wasn't my friend, but that type of persona exists, and this is why good Muslim sisters must help within this battle. They must help to push against this ideology that's sweeping minds across the globe. My sisters are into that, and I try to reason with them, but sometimes someone else has to say it to them in order for them to listen, right? Sometimes your sisters don't want to listen to you because you're their sister, you know? But if their friend said it, they go, oh, this is gold. You see what I'm saying? So you can help someone without even realizing it. And this is why we need more sisters creating good content that pushes against this narrative. Because if the men only do it, then the feminists get more crazy, right? They say, women are oppressed. But if you as a woman say, no, I'm not oppressed. I don't want to be like you. And it's my conscious decision to not be like you. Well, then what's their narrative then? They can't call you oppressed. They can't say you're being controlled by a toxic male. Rather, you're saying it based on your own propensity with your own will, by the permission of Allah. So think about what I said and how we all can create pro-family content that talks about the joys of being a mom and the shame of being a jizz rag, rather, which is quite mean to say, but it's the truth. The way they talk about dismembering children is worse, yet they're allowed to say that publicly. But if you say Cardi B is not a role model, that's hate speech. See, the secular liberal atheists, they invert everything, like Satanists. So let me know what you think, and I hope you're having a good Ramadan.